The early 1960s were defined by a rigid, high-stakes geopolitical reality. The Berlin Wall went up, the Cuban Missile Crisis brought the world to the brink, and the threat of nuclear war dictated foreign policy. The archetype of a world leader in this era was clear. Men like John F. Kennedy, Nikita Khrushchev, and Charles de Gaulle were hardened career politicians and military strategists navigating a zero-sum game. But the leadership of the world's largest democracy presented a glaring exception. India's president, Dr. Sarvepalli Radhakrishnan, was not a general or a lifelong politician. He was a world-class philosopher and academic. The evidence of how he governed is preserved in this document. It is a published collection of his presidential speeches and writings, spanning exactly this tense period, May 1962 to May 1964. Looking at this index raises a fascinating question. How does a philosopher approach the practical, life-or-death duties of guiding a massive democracy through an era of global peril? Operating from the Rashtrapati Bhawan, the vast seat of Indian power, Radhakrishnan managed a massive volume of diplomatic traffic. This table of contents shows us exactly how he framed international relations. He categorized his diplomatic speeches under one world, pitching the concept of nations as friendly partners. Just a few lines down, we see an address on the absolute need for nuclear disarmament. He built out a massive web of diplomatic ties by officially receiving ambassadors from across the heavily divided geopolitical spectrum. In rapid succession, he welcomed envoys from Syria, the Soviet bloc via Czechoslovakia, and the West via Mexico. He reinforced this web through personal diplomacy, traveling to meet regional powers like the Shah of Iran to solidify historical Middle East alliances. This relentless, inclusive itinerary gives us the mechanics of India's Cold War strategy of non-alignment. He used philosophical diplomacy as a form of soft power, maintaining a delicate balance between warring global factions. While he managed relationships abroad, late 1962 brought severe domestic pressure. The outbreak of the Sino-Indian border conflict plunged the country into severe internal anxiety. Radhakrishnan's itinerary shifted sharply in response. Looking at his domestic speeches, we track a pivot towards national resilience. In late 1962, the abstract philosopher traded theory for stark wartime reality, delivering speeches like "Force is no arbiter" and urging national resolution. To hold the country together during the conflict, he anchored the public to India's recent founding figures, dedicating memorials to unifiers like Sardar Vallabhbhai Patel. A philosopher-president cannot survive purely on abstract thought. When the nation is threatened, they must translate intellectual ideals into practical domestic unity. Yet even through wartime tensions, the most unusual aspect of his presidency remained intact. He dedicated vast blocks of his schedule to academic and spiritual engagements. He aggressively sought common ground across the country's diverse demographics. He studied Jaina thinkers, spoke on the message of Swami Vivekananda, and searched for shared principles among Hindu, Sikh, and other traditions. He was a constant presence on campuses. The record shows a relentless focus on higher education, packed with university inaugurations, writers' conferences, and talks on the societal function of teachers. He even exported this role globally. On his 1963 UK tour, he paused diplomatic meetings to deliver addresses on human fulfillment at the University of Edinburgh. Radhakrishnan viewed the presidency as a vital cultural classroom. For him, the office was a platform for public education and spiritual elevation. In the traditional arena of global statecraft, power is measured in military might, troop deployments, and economic leverage. That makes the reality of Radhakrishnan's 2-year itinerary so striking. Here is a head of state balancing intense nuclear disarmament talks with opening coffee boards and celebrating regional poets. It reflects a very specific conviction. Building a resilient nation requires cultivating the cultured mind just as aggressively as building physical infrastructure. By applying philosophical principles to both domestic crises and international diplomacy, he generated a unique form of influence, a quiet, expansive soft power that rippled far beyond India's borders. The artifact of his term serves as a historical reminder. The highest levels of political leadership can be a philosophical endeavor, one that champions the shared human spirit.